Tonight, on Closer Look, mention the name Acton to almost anyone in Ontario, and you will inevitably be asked, is it worth the drive? The Hide House, a shopping staple that once brought over 300,000 people annually to Acton in the town of Halton Hills, is closing after an astounding 165 years in business. Halton Hills Today reporter Herb Garbutt has lived in the area for over 30 years and has likely made a purchase or two over that time. He joins us now to talk about the impact the Hide House has had over the years. Herb, good to have you here. Reflecting on the store's legacy, how do you think the closure of the Hide House will impact the town of Acton culturally and economically in the long term?
It definitely brought people to town who might not otherwise come to town. And I think there probably were times in Acton's history where this would have been devastating for the town. But I think Acton has done a good job in sort of diversifying, and you don't see like empty shops on the main street like you did at one time in its history. It's become a pretty little vibrant downtown.
And it seems, Herb, like there was a real sense of connection and community with residents and of course, those that worked at the Hide House over the years. I know it certainly did with Elizabeth McHugh, who worked there for over 30 years. What did that relationship between community and staff mean to those who worked at the Hide House?
Well, the one thing Elizabeth mentioned was that it was like being a part of a family, and that was especially true when the Dawkins family owned the Hide House. They were very well known and very well respected in town. And Elizabeth said like there was always members of the Dawkins family in the store, and they knew all the employees. I think she said at one point they used, before like direct deposit, they used to walk around and give them their paychecks. So there was a real tight connection. And I think even though the Dawkins sold the store like quite a while ago, I think there was some pride in the employees that they wanted to keep the store going and sort of live up to what the Dawkins had built over the years.
Yeah, no question there. Now, the Hide House was more than just a store for many people. Do you think the closure signals perhaps a larger shift in how smaller towns like Acton maintain their identities and continue to attract visitors?
I think there's always kind of a danger when a town is so tied to one thing. And of course, the tanning industry is a huge part of Acton's history. But as I mentioned earlier, they have diversified a lot. The downtown is doing very well now. You go down there and for a town of its size, you look at the restaurants and you can get Greek, you can get Thai, you can get Mexican, there's a vegan restaurant. So it has lots of things that can still bring people to town. And then in keeping with sort of maintaining that history, every year since I think the early 90s, they've had the Leathertown Festival, and that brings thousands of people to town. And so through an event like that, they're able to maintain that tie to their history, even if they're not solely reliant on it.
Let's talk about the business side of things for a sec, Herb. There's no question that the decline in demand for leather products, perhaps among younger consumers, was cited as a reason for the closure. What other factors contributed to this decision to close the business?
I think that is the big one, just with younger consumers not having as high demand for leather products. But also, if you look back to when the Hide House really started as a retail outlet in the 80s, there's just so many more shopping options now.
What was the mood among customers and employees on the first day of the liquidation sale? It must have been full-blown reminiscing mode.
I have to admit, I was really skeptical when I was asked to go up there. I expected to find a lot of people just swooping in to scoop up bargains so they could resell them on eBay. But you know what? Every person I talked to had a story about shopping there in the past, and that was really nice to see. There was people who talked about when there was a restaurant upstairs, and they would get together at Easter for their family dinner there. There was another woman who talked about there used to be a play area, um, where the kids could go, and I guess at that time you could leave your kids to play and while you shopped and not have to worry. Um, yeah, so and that same person talked about it being more of an outing rather than just going shopping. It was um, something for the family to do. Yeah, so they're obviously going to miss it. There's a lot of people there who, I guess, whether it was their favorite gloves or their favorite slippers, that's where they always bought them, and so they were going to make sure that they had a stock of with the hideouts not being there anymore.
So the store will close once the $5 million in inventory is liquidated. Before we let you go, Herb, can you share any personal memories of the store, maybe what it meant to you and what this loss will mean for the community?
I remember when we first moved here, and of course, like you mentioned earlier, I moved into Georgetown, and Acton was the next town over, and it's like I'd never heard of Georgetown when I moved there, but I'd heard of Acton, and that was just through the radio ads. Um, I remember not long after we moved here, I went up and bought my wife a leather coat that she wore for years, um, and it was the kind of store that it's not like you shop there every week or every month. Um, because the stuff that they sold was very high quality. So you didn't need to shop there very much. You'd buy a coat, and then it might be 10 years before you need another one. But that's part of what they built their brand on was selling good quality stuff. And I think that's what people really appreciated is they knew they could get that there. And it was kind of nice to have that as part of a small town. And the other thing was that, when I first started working here, I remember going to cover events there. There was always fundraisers there. I remember there was an annual fashion show to raise money for charity. And that's, as I said, when the Dawkins family owned it, they were really entwined in the community, and the Hyde House was a big part of that.
Well, Herb, Hyde House or not, it will still be worth the drive to Acton. Halton Hills Today reporter Herb Garbutt. Thanks for joining us, Herb, on Closer Look.
Thanks for having me.